How stunning you are. I never dreamed that my first kiss would be with such a beauty. God, Nancy, you're incredible. But just as I reached out to hug Nancy, the image was gone. Heck, I angrily pulled off my VR glasses and... Mom, what have you done? Mom was standing there with the cord sheet unplugged. And what was this supposed to mean? In an icy tone, Mom had told me to go to dinner. I clenched my fists, hiding my annoyance, and started down the stairs to the kitchen. Even though I was angry, didn't want to show it. It was already hard for her. When I was 6, my dad left us and our world turned into hell. Mom could not even find the strength to cook. Once, when I brought Mom dinner, I noticed that she was not breathing. I was so scared and ran to her, but I tripped over an empty bottle. There were a dozen of them here. It turned out that Mom was drunk. God, it was so scary. I was there all night. But when she woke up, she whispered that she didn't want to live. Everything inside me collapsed. Through my tears, I promised that I would never leave her alone. She smiled sadly and said that my dad had said the same thing, and then betrayed her. I felt the fire of hatred burning inside me. I would never be like him. When I met my soulmate, I would surround her with love. To always be close to my mom, I switched to homeschooling. Only Mom didn't feel any better. But one day, everything changed. One day at dinner, Mom confusedly said that she had plans for the evening. I got wary. I'm going on a date, she said suddenly. I was like, what? This was great. The main thing was that this man was worthy of her. Suddenly, Mom said that she had another piece of news. She handed me a gift wrap package, but what was it? I quickly unpacked and... Come on, a virtual reality kit? I dreamed of such a thing, but we didn't have the money to buy it. I looked at my mother questioningly, hesitantly. She said it was from my dad, so I froze. He had been gone for 15 years. Why did he suddenly show up? Mom's face flushed and she quickly left. Still at a loss, I installed the console, and there was a download window. Wow, there was an installed game here? Real life? I clicked on it uncertainly and put on my glasses, and I immediately plunged into a new world. I created my character. He was taller than me and more beefed out, also with a beard. Yes, in real life, I could only dream of such a look. I went to explore the city. While I was looking around, a guy came up to me. I cringed inwardly. I was used to such meetings in ordinary life ending badly. But the guy smiled at me and said it looked like I was new, and he offered to show the city. Tempting, but I had other goals. So thanked the guy and told him I wasn't here to hang out. I wanted to learn how to build a relationship with girls. After all, this game was my chance to learn how to behave with the opposite sex. And when I learned, I could build a strong relationship in my life. I turned off the console, and I heard the lock click. Mom came back so late? She looked pleased. I immediately rushed to tell her about the game, and Mom said that I should call my father. No way though. The next morning, I immediately reached for the console. I couldn't wait to plunge back into a perfect world. I was hoping that this time I could meet a girl there. I started the game. I had a very good feeling about this. I found myself on a familiar street in the city and suddenly saw her. She was riding a skateboard, and I realized that she was the one. There was not a second to lose, and then I rushed to catch up with a beautiful stranger. She slowed down, turned around, and abruptly asked why I was following her. I was confused. Normally, I would have mumbled something unintelligible. But hell, I could be whatever I wanted here. So I blurted out that I fell in love at first sight. My heart was pounding out of my chest. She would tell me where to get off, but the girl smiled and said I was cute. Then she introduced herself as Nancy. I couldn't believe it. She didn't turn me down. Nancy called me for a walk. On the way, we got to talking. She asked a lot about my childhood, about my parents, but when I told her about my dad, she asked in a puzzled way if it was really true that he had not showed up all this time. This couldn't be happening. It could, Nancy. You just don't know what it's like to know that your dad does not care about you. Suddenly, Nancy stopped abruptly and said that she seems to have some problems with the internet. Her character disappeared into thin air. I spent the next day playing the game again. But Nancy did not show up. And just when I thought I'd never see her again, she called out to me. We skateboarded together for hours. She was so awesome, but our tastes didn't always agree. Hers were somewhat, old-fashioned, but she was constantly making excuses, repeating that she had no friends of her own age at all. It was hard to believe. Nancy, you had to be the coolest girl in school. All my days now passed with only one thought: how to quickly immerse myself into the game. I was ashamed to admit, but I wasn't even interested in how Mom was doing. Although judging by her happy appearance, everything was great with the new boyfriend. In the evening, when Mom and I were having dinner, her phone rang. Mom picked up the phone and suddenly turned pale. What happened? In tears, My mom said that my dad had been in an accident. What was going on? Mom started packing quickly. I didn't understand why she was making such a fuss. Dad would never have gone to help you. But Mom said sharply that I was being unfair. As a real son, I should also go with her. No way. I was so angry. When I got my breath back a little, I felt that deep down I was really worried about my dad. Maybe I shouldn't have reacted so harshly to my mom's words. I didn't know what to do, and then I decided to go into the game. Nancy understood me so well, she would definitely give a good advice. I quickly put on my glasses and turned on the console, but Nancy was nowhere to be found. I sent her a request to join, but she didn't respond. Panic gripped me. I suddenly felt alone. Mom was all about a new boy, and the girl I loved didn't even get in touch. I pulled off my glasses. Why did I even think she felt the same way about me? It was a game. And who knew how she was like in real life? I threw my glasses on the floor angrily. For the next few days, I stayed in the game as I searched the entire virtual city for Nancy. Did she become uninterested in me and would never see each other again? But soon, when I was riding my bike, I received a notification on my phone. Nancy? She called me to the game. It was like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. I immediately rushed home, put on my glasses, and immediately saw Nancy. She asked me not to ask her anything she would tell me. Good. Then let's go for a ride. Nancy nodded and loaded the bike into the game. What about your skates? Nancy was confused, but said that she had decided to try something new. It was kind of weird. And during the walk, I was convinced that Nancy wasn't like my Nancy. We talked about movies and games all the time. She was not as old-fashioned as I thought she was. I felt like we were on the same page. And at the moment we almost kissed, Mom came into the room and turned off the console. I was very angry. But my mom looked worried. God, was something wrong with my dad? Mom replied that he was being discharged from the hospital today, which means we should visit him, she said suddenly. Should we? Mom hugged me. We are not all eternal, and there is nothing worse than realizing that you have not had the time to forgive someone who was really dear to you. These words hooked me. I decided to go to my dad, to his new family. I got to his house and I saw him. So that's why I have blue eyes and a square chin. My dad's new wife's at the table. She was so nice to me. And Dad seemed genuinely interested in everything. He was a monster in my imagination, but the man I saw before me now was a real good-natured man. Then a girl bursted into the kitchen. It turned out to be their adopted daughter, Shai. Surprisingly, she had so relieved the situation. It was as easy as if we'd known each other for 1,000 years. After dinner, she volunteered to show me the house. We went into her room and then I saw the same console as mine. Wow, it turned out that she also played real life. Wow, see you in the game tonight. I came home in high spirits. I couldn't wait to play with Shai. And I didn't want to tell Nancy about her in case she took offense. I put on my glasses and started the game. Time passed, but she did not come. Maybe she had problems with the internet. Suddenly I noticed some silhouette. Finally. But it was Nancy. She came over and said, well, hi. How did you get home? Shai? So it was you? An amazing coincidence, but Shai looked very confused. She said it didn't really seem like a coincidence because when she turned on the console, a character had already been created there, and she just went in out of curiosity. And so she met me. She said that she was surprised when I called her Nancy, but decided to continue pretending that we really knew each other. Stop, so Shai had only been in the game for a week? And who played for Nancy all this time? Shai kept saying that she didn't have any guesses at all. Suddenly she screamed and abruptly disconnected. Where are you going? An hour later, there was a knock on our door. Maybe it was my mom's new boyfriend. I ran downstairs, eager to meet him. But Shai was standing in the doorway with my dad. I didn't understand anything. Here, meet the real Nancy, Shai said with a chuckle. What was going on? Was this a joke? Dad said that he tried his best to make contact with me, but never got a chance. What did he mean? He could just come. Suddenly, he said that he wanted to see me, but Mom forbade him. He added that he always passed gifts with notes, hoping that I would get in touch with him. What are you talking about, Dad? Then I noticed my mom. She heard everything. Mom looked down and said that she was very ashamed. I didn't understand anything. So, was it true? Mom nodded. She replied that for a long time, her resentment against my dad was so great that she did not notice anything. She actually gave all the gifts to the orphanage, but her new man convinced her that she could establish a connection between her son and his father. And who is your new man? The teacher from the orphanage, Mom said with a smile. She met him when I was handing over Dad's presents, but now she realized how important this relationship was, for me and for my dad. And she was so ashamed that she let her pride overshadow the voice of her heart. I threw myself into my dad's arms. Mom and Shy hugged us too. Well, real life, though more complex and confusing, is much more interesting than any game. Did you like this video? Then subscribe and like it. Support the channel, folks. Thank you so much.
Austin, there are actually rules here. Where do you put your feet? But suddenly I got goosebumps all over my body. Our twister lit up brightly with green light. Each circle on it was flashing in its own rhythm. What the hell is going on here? Am I crazy? I always got along well with my classmates. But when I saw our new kid Austin, I just lost my mind. He was somehow extraordinary. I literally couldn't take my eyes off him. And of course, when a few weeks later he asked me to date, I agreed without hesitation. I was dreaming about this since the first day he transferred to our class. It soon turned out that Austin loved different games. Blood Rage, King of Tokyo, and Uno were his world. To be honest, before Austin, I wasn't particularly keen on this. But gradually I got involved too. I couldn't even think better that it could be so entertaining. One day, Austin came to me with a mysterious smile. I found the right store. Let's go quickly. 15 minutes later, we were already standing at the entrance. I couldn't even catch my breath. A huge store specializing in different games. Well, I didn't know there was such a thing in our town. But when I looked closer, I realized that something was wrong with the store. There were fresh cracks in some places, and it was completely dark inside. Strange. I looked at Austin questioningly, but he only gestured for me to come in. The store really had a rather gloomy atmosphere. There were mountains of closed boxes everywhere and some fragments were lying on the floor. We quickly left without understanding anything. The owner literally pushed us out the door. He was also looking at Austin so strangely, literally looking daggers at him. It was a little strange. For the next few days, I couldn't leave the idea of going back there and asking the owner about everything better. I got ready and went there alone. Little has changed inside except that there were noticeably fewer boxes. During our short conversation, the owner was constantly distracted by phone calls and some business, but still told me that recently a terrible car accident happened to the store. Someone drove a black Jeep into it, so that's why there was such ruin everywhere. I expressed my condolences, but the owner replied that some games were still intact, but they were moved to another store. Hooray! Austin will be thrilled. Quickly finding out the address, I immediately rushed to the second store. I was already looking forward to choosing the coolest board game for Austin, but when I went inside, there was no limit to my disappointment. Almost all the games were bought. After wandering between the half-empty shelves on which games were displayed only for preschoolers, I asked the seller if there was anything left. He looked thoughtfully at the screen and said, "There is one Twister in the warehouse." Without thinking twice, I blurted out, "I'll take it." Of course, not the best option, but at least something for Austin and me. Soon I was walking down the street with a box in my hands and sweetly imagined how surprised Austin would be. But after a couple of minutes, I realized that something was confusing me. I slowly turned my head and noticed that two men in black were staring at me from the other side of the street. Frightened, I quickened my pace. But when I turned around again, the men were gone. Strange, maybe I imagined it? In the evening, Austin came to me as usual. "I have something for you." I immediately blurted out and reached for the box. As soon as Austin saw the package, his face just broke into a smile. Hooray! He liked it! We immediately started to play. At first, everything went well. But then, hey, I'm sick of it. Austin, there are actually rules here. Where do you put your feet? Are you cheating at Twister? I didn't have time to finish, as some kind of devilry started happening to me too. My hand was stubbornly reaching for the blue circle, even though I just got a red one. Wait, what is this all about? Am I crazy? I looked at Austin in confusion, who apparently also did not understand anything. But then something happened that made a lump rise in my throat. The twister lit up brightly with a green light. Each circle on it was flashing in its own rhythm. Austin, on the other hand, watched expectantly as the Twister Man transformed into some kind of incomprehensible thing with a bunch of buttons and light bulbs. I was speechless from the shock. But why was Austin watching it all so calmly? I was afraid to move and just waited for an explanation. Don't be afraid, please. I need to confess something to you. Austin looked at me guiltily. An unpleasant chill ran down my spine. Come on. But before Austin could open his mouth, suddenly there was a strange noise and hum in the street. The window was flooded with multicolored light. I looked out of it and saw a real flying spaceship right near my house. My God, it's like from the movies. That was all I blurted out. Run! Austin suddenly shouted. It already seemed to me that I was in some strange fantasy movie, but what happened next just didn't fit in my head. Austin pulled me to the back exit of the house. I was so amazed that I didn't even have the strength to resist. On the way, he told me that it turned out he was an alien. At first I thought he was just kidding me. But Austin was talking in an absolutely serious tone about how he traveled through space on his ship and accidentally falling into a meteor shower, crashed and fell into the same store with games. It was just a month ago when Austin was transferred to our class. I listened and bated breath and still couldn't believe it. We were already running out into the yard from the back door and Austin kept talking. He said that after the crash, he was already dying. The ship could not be saved and all he could do was disguise the ship as a store. And he turned all the important equipment into the boxes of games. Among everything, there was an emergency communication device for calling for help. But losing consciousness, Austin no longer remembered what exactly he disguised it under. The partner who helped him died, and Austin barely remembered who he was, so the search dragged on. To say that I was in shock is to say nothing. Does your boyfriend often tell you that he is an alien? I shivered in the cold evening air and looked from Austin to the flying saucer. But suddenly Austin stopped me and told me to wait around the corner of the house. Damn it. He blurted out. I followed his gaze and saw near the flying spaceship those men who were watching me when I just bought the twister. It's the feds. They won't let me fly back, said Austin. We need to act faster. He looked into my eyes and said, I'm sorry I didn't tell you right away. I was scared. I was afraid that you, like other Earthlings, would not accept me. But as soon as I saw you, I immediately felt something. Unfortunately, only 2 people can communicate with representatives of my extraterrestrial race. And my partner died, but our feelings helped me to call for help. If it wasn't for you and this twister game, I would never have returned to my homeland. Thank you. Samantha, come with me. Austin tightened his grip on my hand. We'll travel across galaxies, explore worlds, and I'll even give you a star. I couldn't understand anything. Austin spoke very sincerely, but I looked around my house. Remembered friends, parents, school, a lump rose in my throat because I really wanted to be with him. Samantha, hurry up, he urged me on. The feds already heard the strange noise around the corner of the house and began to approach us. Cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I'm sorry. I can't leave everything and fly away, was all I managed to let out. My family, friends, my whole life are here. I love you very much, but I love them no less. Austin just looked at me knowingly and bending down, kissed me, whispering in my ear, Goodbye, I hope to see you again. After that, he deftly jumped onto the fire escape. The feds immediately noticed him and reached for their guns. No, I squeezed my eyes shut, but Austin just as nimbly jumped to the roof of the spaceship, quickly waved to me, and after a couple of seconds, the flying saucer already disappeared somewhere in the air. While the feds stared blankly at the night sky, I quickly made my way back to the house. The trembling from fright and cold did not let me go in any way. Did he really just fly away? I sat down on the floor and couldn't hold back my tears. It was all just a magical dream. Days followed one another. One day, I came back from school and saw a twister box on the bed. Did you like the video? Subscribe and like it. Support the channel. Thank you.
I woke up in a strange room. Everything bathed in a dark pink neon light. Used syringes were scattered on the floor. What the hell was going on here? I was about to get up, but that took my breath away. Out of the darkness, the sinister silhouette of my crazy neighbor was approaching me. I closed my eyes, prepared for the worst. My name is Ronnie. I'm an ordinary teenager. It seems that there is nothing interesting in my life. Studying, home, and video games in the evenings are all that my days consist of. I think my life would have been quite dull if it hadn't been for Emma, a girl from the other group in my college. We sometimes have classes together, and all I think about is how to get to know her. But so far I have never dared to approach her. I know it looks very stupid from a distance, but I just don't have the courage yet. In addition, Emma appears quite rarely in college, and if she comes, she quickly disappears somewhere after classes. One day after school, I was returning home and I felt bad again for not approaching Emma. But near my house, I saw a new neighbor. She was about 30 and she looked too strange. She was in worn-out clothes with huge bags under her eyes. I tensed up, but still decided to offer her help with the large packages that she was carrying. But the new neighbor refused me, quite rudely. A very strange and awkward situation. In the evening, I sat down to play video games in my room as usual. Then I noticed something unusual. The new neighbor's window was flooded with dark pink light. Suddenly, the neighbor herself came to the window, saw how I was looking at her, and abruptly closed all the windows. Very creepy. For the rest of the evening, couldn't stop wondering who this new neighbor was and what she was doing there. The next morning, I was about to go to college, when suddenly I saw something strange again. A courier arrived at the new neighbor. He was unloading several crates of fresh pineapples. What? Why does she need so many pineapples? The situation was getting weirder. I really wanted to watch more, but damn, I was already late for school. I decided that today, after the classes, I would definitely approach Emma. Now or never. I went to her class, but all the guys there were actively discussing some new substance. One guy told me that someone started distributing a new psychedelic drug in the city, but no one could find a drug den. That's news, but where was Emma? It turned out that she left right after class. I miss her again. Heck, I even got a headache. After college, I decided to go to the pharmacy to buy something for a headache. But as soon as I went there, I was almost speechless. I saw my strange neighbor again. She was buying a lot of syringes and a lot of elastic bandages. I greeted her timidly, but she didn't say anything in response. She turned around and left. Her sinister gaze literally made me shudder. Now I had even more questions. When I got home, I couldn't calm down in any way and was already waiting for the evening to follow my neighbor. I didn't leave the window, waiting to see something. There was clearly something wrong with her. So what's this? The courier came to her again with a bunch of some boxes. I took a closer look. The courier brought a ton of leather goods? My God, what's going on here? The courier acted as if he had known her for a long time. The neighbor reached into her pocket and took out a wad of money. Wow, so much cash, but where does she get it from? She dresses like a beggar. Then she quickly brought all the things home. And then, at exactly 8 o'clock in the evening, she lit these lamps again, came to the window, and we met eyes again. But this time, her piercing gaze made me shudder. I felt uneasy. She closed the windows again as if nothing had happened. So what the hell was this? There was clearly something wrong going on there. Exactly. A drug den. A new substance. She was definitely involved in this. I reveled in my guess, because they started talking about a substance in the city exactly after this strange woman came to it. But now I needed proof. I'll find it myself. Yes, I'll get it myself. Nothing complicated. The next day, I decided to climb the fire escape of a neighbor's house to get proof. I had to wait for 8 p.m. I was cold and scared. I was already beginning to doubt my decision, and at one point, I almost fell down. Okay, Ronnie, calm down. I really wanted to leave, but I still waited for some reason. The clock struck 8. The neighbor, as usual, closed the windows. the lamps turned on. I tried to carefully peek at her through the gap between the curtains, and I saw something strange. For a second, I could barely catch my breath. The neighbor in some strange outfit turned on the cameras and began to do some trash. She ate food from syringes, wrapped herself in elastic bandages, and she was definitely high. You wouldn't do this in your right mind, so it was she who distributed the new substance and even took it herself. I carefully recorded this madness. I was already thinking of going down and calling the police, but then the old rusty fire escape creaked violently. I froze, but the neighbor immediately noticed that someone was spying on her and immediately rushed to the window. I started back out of fear, but suddenly I slipped and fell. My vision went dark and I blacked out. I came to myself in some room with pink LED lamps. My head hurt terribly. Where am I? Syringes, bandages, pineapples. What was going on here? Something crazy was approaching me. I armed myself with the first thing that came to hand. It turned out to be a pineapple. I started shouting, "Don't come near me!" But the neighbor only smiled and then laughed. I was completely at a loss. She came up to me, gently took the pineapple, and began to tell me everything. It turned out that she was not a dealer at all, but she was forced to work as a webcam model. Clients sent her strange tasks every day, to eat a kilogram of pineapples at a time, for example, or to wrap herself in bandages like a mummy, and all that she was forced to do on camera. She herself was terribly tired of all this, but she couldn't do anything else right now. She urgently needed money for her sister's treatment. Her sister had to undergo a course of immunotherapy and a bunch of other procedures every 2 weeks, and this was very expensive. I wish the earth would swallow me. Although the neighbor was doing something strange, it was for a good cause, and I wanted to hand her over to the police as a dangerous drug lord. I never felt so uncomfortable in my life. By the way, here she is. With this phrase, the neighbor went to the bedside table and took out a photo of her sick sister. My jaw just dropped. I forgot all the words in the world. This was Emma, the same girl from the other group, whom I did not dare to approach in any way, and who I liked madly. Damn. Now it was clear why she skipped college so often. She just went to this expensive treatment. Having recovered a little from such a shock, I told my neighbor that she would no longer have to fulfill the whims of various perverts on the internet in order to save up for a surgery. My father worked in one of the largest clinics in the city, and if I asked, he would help to get a quota, a state treatment for Emma, a full course with rehabilitation, etc. He wouldn't have to worry about all this anymore. At first, the neighbor did not seem to believe her ears, but then she rushed to hug me and did not stop thanking me. I said that she shouldn't thank me, because I liked Emma very much. My neighbor could blame me. Of course, this was not how I imagined meeting Emma, but life can be unpredictable. After a few weeks of therapy, Emma already felt much better. I did get to know her when I came to visit her with her sister. Emma looked at us and asked in surprise how we knew each other. I winked at her sister with a laugh and said, we just worked together on one project. Now, I felt not like an ordinary teenager, but a real hero. I was able to help the one with whom I had not even dared to speak before. Even the most ordinary teenager can do something important. I gathered my thoughts and finally asked Emma out on a date. Did you like this video? Then subscribe and like it. Support the channel, folks. Thank you so much.